Very much. I just noticed that on my name badge, it just says Alex Hunter, former virgin. I mean, technically true, exactly, aren't we all? I've been called a lot of things before, but never that. Thank you very much for including me today. I really appreciate it. I like talking about how the relationship between I like talking, but I also like talking about how the relationship between the customer and the brand at the highest level, irrespective of industry or B2B, B2C, doesn't really matter, how that's changed, and changed dramatically in the last 15 years. And what we can do as businesses and organizations to take advantage of that change, because it can be overwhelming. Social media and all that nonsense has produced so much exhaust and garbage being pumped out into the ecosystem. There's just so much noise that when we want to have a legitimate conversation, be it with someone we care about or a customer or a potential customer, that it's even harder now to find those people and make a meaningful connection with them, which then can turn hopefully into a business relationship. And so I'm fascinated by that problem. And I want to spend the next 30 minutes sort of looking at businesses and ideas and stories that I just like telling that have attacked this problem from a variety of different angles. And some of the examples are from businesses that I am sure that you have all heard of, and one or two that I'm convinced that none of you have heard of. And that's okay. I think they're just as potent. In fact, I would argue that the ones from the tiny 1- and 2-man startups are even more relevant because they had so little to work with in the first place. And the marketplace has changed. We have to work so much harder than we did 10, 15 years ago to let people even know that we exist, that our services are available and our services are appropriate for them. The volume of noise is much, much louder. It's not as easy as it used to be. Why? Because the fundamental, and I don't have to tell you guys this, you know this better than anybody, but the fundamental way that we do business has changed exponentially in the last 50 years, but especially in the last 15 years. In the olden days, 10 years ago, this was easy. Marketing was a piece of cake. Brand building was a piece of cake. The conversation was entirely monodirectional, which is hugely advantageous to the person doing the talking. And marketers very quickly figured this out. They put up their billboard or their TV ad or their radio ad. You have no way back then of interacting with that content. You can't tweet to a billboard. There was no channel for you to really question the efficacy of the claims that were being made by these products. Marketers, being the savvy people that they are, very quickly figured this out and immediately took advantage of it. These are all real ads from the 50s, 60s, and 70s that I just love sharing. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Smoke cigarettes and you'll get healthier. We don't even let cigarette companies advertise anymore. We would destroy them if they ever tried anything like this. You mean a woman can open it? That's a feature. That's a product feature. So the next time you roll out a new product or service, it suits this, point in your life, and you great returns, and women can use it. Try that. I dare you. Watch what happens, and let's not ignore the overt sexual connotation in that image. They knew exactly what they were doing in the 1950s. And that's not some, fly-by-night company. That's Del Monte, the second largest producer of tomato-based products in the world. That is the best they could come up with. But that was the tone of the conversation at the time. For my technical people in the room, you mean this is a computer and the single greatest strapline in advertising history? You bet your sweet telex operator it is. I don't even know what that means. So this next one I actually have framed in my office because I love it so much. Blow in her face and she'll follow you anywhere. Ladies, is that true? I've been doing it wrong. They are no longer in business. Now, you know that there is a generation, an increasingly broad percentage of our population that realize that the conversation between the brand and the marketer is exactly that. It's marketing. They see right through it. It is very, very, it is not nearly as effective as it perhaps could be. So, and they figured this out 30 years ago. So they realized that if the message wasn't coming through from the brand, then perhaps they need to put the message in the hand of an influencer, like legendary American comedian Bob Hope in one of the creepiest pictures I've ever seen. And if Bob says smoke Chesterfield cigarettes, you're going to smoke Chesterfield cigarettes. Now, the more savvy of you will have realized that Bob has been paid to make that endorsement. He is shilling a product. So if you don't believe Bob Hope, then perhaps you'll believe your doctor. And if your doctor tells little Timmy there to smoke Camel cigarettes, little Timmy's going to grow up smoking Camel cigarettes. No one knows whether they should laugh at that. You should, it's fine. Timmy's been dead for a long time. The reason why we can laugh at these, and the reason why they seem so preposterous, is that we have moved so far away from that type of relationship between us and the consumer. That relationship has changed forever. It will never, ever go back to that type of advertising marketing relationship, and that's a good thing. Yes, we have to work harder, but it's challenging us to create authentic relationships between the people that ultimately pay our salaries. Quickly back to, I think it's important to contextualize this with a little bit of theory, and then stay with me, please. I promise we'll get back to the goofy pictures, but I think the context is important as well. So you've all seen this, or a version of this, the classic consumer funnel for purchasing choice. And we've used this for basically since the dawn of business to map consumer behavior. When I was in the need to purchase something, I would have lots of potential brands and slowly, methodically narrow them down until I basically landed on the least crap. Pretty inefficient way of doing it, but that's really all we did. And as brands, we advertised accordingly. We had the right message at the right place at the right time. So big out-of-home campaign, above-the-line spend to let people know that we existed. Side-by-side comparison in industry journals to elevate ourselves above the competition. Price-based promotion to nudge people over the line and incentivize them to pick up the phone, come in the shop, whatever it is. Again, hugely inefficient. We're sabotaging our bottom line. More importantly, I would argue, is that the relationship with the brand is focused exclusively on when I'm using it and when I need. So for example, my relationship with my lawnmower, if I can have one, is exclusive when I'm using it and when it breaks and I need to take it in to be serviced or put down. That's it. Not many opportunities for me to really fall in love with the experience or the brand that made the product. That model is dead. Hallelujah. Gone. It's outmoded, it's outdated, it's inefficient. The market has forced that change. Nothing that we have done as marketers has precipitated that change. How the consumer demands to be able to research products, that's what's changed it. You think about when you travel. You're not just going to go and buy the first thing you're going to do. You're going to spend literally weeks researching every hotel in the world or in your destination before you actually make a purchase. Even before we go down to John Lewis or whatever to buy a washing machine, we will have spent literally hours researching, and we'll know exactly what we want to do before we go in. So traditional sales techniques have also had to reinvent themselves as well. As such, the models had to change. I'm sure you've all seen this before. We've tried to force it into a more cyclical version, which by definition is more efficient, but it also reinforces the points at which we can interact with our potential customers and then our customers post-purchase. But the reason why we've had to shift the model is they don't systematically narrow down to the least crap anymore. They expect better than that. Nowadays, consumers will add and subtract brands over a much, much longer evaluation phase, taking in 10 to 50 times more resources and information sources to make that decision feel comfortable that they're making the right decision. Post-purchase, and this to me I think is where it gets really exciting, that relationship with the brand becomes open-ended. We have not only almost infinite resource to research, but also all of these platforms to share our opinions. And God knows we love the sound of our own voice. We will share our opinion about everything. Hotels, movies, restaurants, you name it. And we'll share our opinions with people in our own social graph, friends on Facebook, LinkedIn, et cetera, but also with people who we will never, ever meet in a million years. the people on TripAdvisor and Booking.com, whatever things you use to Yelp and things like that. We feel like we need to contribute to the zeitgeist. And that is this sort of self-fulfilling cycle that is becoming very, very powerful, has forced this change. As a result, that moment to influence purchase, what do I need to do and when do I need to do it to get somebody to actually buy something, has changed. In the past, we put a lot of emphasis on the consideration phase, letting people know that we existed. So extremely expensive, above-the-line advertising campaigns. And on the buy phase, nudging people with price-based promotion, coupons, buy one, get one free, a year's service if you sign up for 5, that type of thing, actively sabotaging our bottom line. But the brands that have figured this out understand that if you help the customer through the evaluation phase with information and tools, even if it means exposing your customer to your competitor, you immediately build a relationship beyond the sort of edifice of your product. And you humanize the relationship. And then post-purchase, allowing the customer to advocate on your behalf. This didn't mean anything before the internet. It was, word of mouth was, 50 people in our broad networks? Now it's almost infinite. So the companies that foster this and encourage this are the ones that are getting so much more bang for their buck. Now, there's the holy grail of this, where a consumer's bond with the brand becomes so strong that when they're back in the point where they need to make a purchasing decision, they wouldn't even consider going to the competition. They would come straight back to the... I'll give you an example. Who are the Apple people in the room? Apple fans. Okay, I'm just talking to you for the minute. Everyone else, put your pencils down. Apple people, when your MacBook finally gives up the ghost and you've gone through your statutory week of mourning, are you going to go to the HP store, the Lenovo store, the Fujitsu store, the Dell store, look what they have? And go, no, of course you're not. You're going to march down to the Apple store, drop two grand on a new laptop, walk out and go, what the hell just happened? How did that happen? We have such a strong bond that we will buy literally anything that they put out without, like, I bought the Apple Watch it's a piece of crap, but I'm going to go and buy the next one because, I have emotional issues with Apple. And it's extremely difficult to get to, but we all have that one brand, and we'll talk about it in a second, but the point is, in this day and age, you cannot just create a service or a product and expect people to flock to it based on the provenance or even your track record. It just doesn't work like that. If you build it, they will come is probably the most nonsensical BS in business that I've ever heard in my life. There's so much more that we need to do, especially in something as delicate as personal finance. And so one of the things I think is worth you investing in is creating this sense of emotion. Don't worry, I'm not getting all motivational speakery on you. There's actual science that I did not make up for this presentation. One of the things that I'm obsessed with and was taught by Sir Uncle Richard is loyalty. Why do we gravitate towards one brand over another? And the bottom line is, and we'll unpack this a little bit, is the sense of emotion. Loyalty is built on an emotional connection with a human being, a brand. It cannot be done through logic. I am not loyal to my wife for logical reasons. I can tell you that right now. There is an emotional connection there. And so this is from Mad Men, which is basically like porn to marketing people like me. But what I feel when I consume your product, when I enter your store, when I finish a service call, when you resolve the problem that I had, what I feel when I consume what you create, no matter what it is, even the words that you write, that is what sells. That is what is going to get me to come back over and over again. And not worry about the mistakes that happen, because they do happen in a relationship. And there is a Canadian neuroscientist called Dr. Donald Kahn, whose work I'm doing a great disservice by sort of distilling down like this. But he ultimately theorized, and almost proved actually, that if you want someone to actually do something, it is far more efficient to appeal to the emotional side of the brain versus the reasonable and rational side. Why? The reasonable side of the brain will give you a conclusion. 1 + 1 = 2. This product, the specifications of this product will fulfill the need that I have. But it won't actually get them to do something. To get them to act, you need to appeal to the emotional side of the brain. That will stop them from walking away from the storefront and actually going in, picking up the phone, making the call, clicking buy, whatever it is you want them to do. I know it's a lot of theory, so I'll give you an example, or you're going to give me an example. What brand or product or service do you love that you use every single day that you could not conceive of your life without? Give them to me. Shout them out. Oh, you're so quiet. What was that one? iPhone? I did this once and somebody just said beer. So mine is Diet Coke. There's absolutely nothing better to me in the entire world than a cool, crisp, no, they're not paying me, refreshing can of Diet Coke. I know it's going to hit the spot. I know it will taste the same no matter where I go in the world. I am 100% brand loyal to Diet Coke. So much so that if I go to a pub and I order a Diet Coke and they say, oh, would Diet Pepsi be okay? It's like they've spit on my grandmother. No, oh, no! Diet Coke, Diet Pepsi, how dare you? Now, the rational, reasonable, logical side of my brain is like, dude, it's the same thing. It's brown water in a tin can that's slowly killing you. Settle down before they throw us out. The emotional part of my brain is like, let's burn this place to the ground. Now, if I can have such an emotional, passionate, borderline sociopathic response to something as innocuous as brown water in a tin can, I could argue that there is no product or service or industry that is immune from that sense of connection. And we'll explore that a little bit more. And to create this sense of emotion, of humanity, of person-to-person relationship, we have to create a sense of individuality. This has been diluted and watered down, yet we've had the technology to do this for literally decades. And it doesn't have to be a sort of gigantic Salesforce, £500,000 software install. It's not about that. It's the little things that create these relationships. I'll give you another example. So I just flew in from New York this morning, and there's a hotel that I always stay there. I first stayed there, 10 years ago. Small boutique hotel, not part of a chain, around the Times Square area. I'm not going to tell you what it is. It's my secret. And you know when you go to a hotel and you check in and you've got a first name, last name, email address, blah, 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 sometimes your passport information. At the bottom of this one, it said, what are your favorite snacks? I said, whatever, weird, blah, 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 Diet Coke, obviously. And then they completed the transaction. I went off to some meetings in town. And when I came back to my room later that day, there was a handwritten note from the manager that said, Dear Alex, because that's my name, welcome to the hotel, blah, 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 blah. A basket full of my favorite snacks and a fridge full of Diet Coke. I'm never staying in another hotel again. This is the greatest hotel in the world. Now, it's a cheap psychological trick pioneered by the Mandarin Oriental Group 30 years ago, putting elements of familiarity and an otherwise homogeneous hotel experience to reduce the sense of dislocation, isolation, and homesickness, and thereby developing an emotional familiarity with the room. It's genius. But it's not pioneering, it's not. But what this little hotel in Manhattan does that so many businesses overlook is that when I go back to that hotel 6 weeks, 6 months, 2 years later, I don't have to deal with any human beings anymore. They have a kiosk and I can blah, blah, get my room and never have to deal with anybody. Go up to my room though, there's a note. Dear Alex, welcome back. Context. Fridge full of Diet Coke and a basket full of my favorite snacks. Just understanding that this is now part of a relationship and not a transaction. I mean, it would be like me coming up to you and saying, hi, I'm Alex, and then going away 30 seconds later, and then coming back and saying, hi, I'm Alex, and you'd go, we just met. You're a bit of a dick for not remembering that. And you'd be perfectly justified to say that. And we would never do that to another human being. Why on earth would we do it to our customers? We have built so many layers of technology to optimize the transaction, squeeze every penny out of every transaction because we assume it's going to be the last, when the businesses that have figured this out are the ones that have optimized the relationship. Using the hotel context again, the hotel will give me Wi-Fi for free. The very expensive hotel next door will charge me $20 a night for it. But the fact that they'll leave that $15, $20 on the table and reinvest it in the technology to allow us to have a relationship, I'm going to keep going back there. I've been going there for 10 years. They've earned that $10 Wi-Fi fee 100 times over because they've taken the time to realize that this is a relationship and not a transaction. Apple, again, have figured this out. They know exactly what we've bought, how many times we've bought it, and they bend the rules accordingly. So few businesses do this, looking at it as a relationship and not a transaction. And the great thing is that when we start to look at it as a relationship, all this wonderful data is created, almost like, we treat it like exhaust because we're not 100% sure what to do with it. But savvy brands and companies have realized that you can use this data to unlock moments of delight along the way. And so I fly with Virgin Atlantic a lot, not because I used to work for their parent company, but I just like what they do. And I have a gold card with them, which means I travel way too much because I earned that thing the hard way. I fly in the cheap seats, not in the pointy end of the airplane. So I kind of assume most of you have flown on a Virgin Atlantic. So, in terms of the inside of the airplane, the physical product, Singapore Airlines, Cathay, Emirates up here, Virgin Atlantic, it's not even a competition. Virgin Atlantic are a tiny airline. And they know they can't compete on physical product. Where they can compete is by doing little things that make individual, high-value customers feel valued. So no matter where I am sitting on the plane, usually seat 72B, middle seat next to the screaming kid, someone from the in-flight team will trek all the way back to the cheap seats and say, "Hi, Alex, it's good to see you again. Welcome back." Alex. Not sir, not seat 72B, not frequent flyer 8969493, Alex, because we're having a human moment, and that's what humans do. And they'll hand me a glass of champagne. I don't even like champagne, but I'm going to drink that because I know exactly what had to happen for that little moment to take place. There's a process and a cultural sort of embedding of this type of thing that needs to happen for that moment to take place. So, when you get on the airplane, scan your boarding pass, you walk down the jet bridge, there's a 10-foot long piece of paper printed out on a circa 1973 dot matrix printer, handed to the flight crew, and there's a little X next to my name that says this guy travels an unhealthy amount. And they have a decision to make when they hand that to the in-flight team lead. She or he can say, this is a very busy part of the flight, and then they can put it in the bin. But what they have as part of their culture is to say, let's find those X's and go and say hi because they mean so much to us. Cost 50p's worth of crappy kava, but it makes me feel like I'm valued and like even though I'm sitting in the cheap seats, I am an important part of that company among the 350 other people that are there. And this kind of leads into, this is a wonderful word, wow, and it's been ruined by marketing people like me. Everybody know what that is? It's a thermostat. The Nest thermostat was created by Tony Fadell, who was the father of the iPod. And when he left Apple with his billions, he could have done literally anything. But he said, you know what I'm going to do? Thermostats, because that sounds fun. Thermostats are gray or white boxes that you keep your house too cold in the winter, too hot in the summer. He could have made an orange one, and we would have all gone, ooh, wow, cool. I'll pay 200 quid for that. But instead, he reimagined the entire experience. It obviously works with your phone. It learns your behaviors, when you leave for the office, when you get home, the temperatures you like, saves you money, blah, blah, blah. But it's also, the physical manifestation of it is so beautiful that I just want to lick it. And now you have people saying, why don't you come to my house and look at my thermostat? No one has ever said that. Nor did we ever think you would be able to say that. So there is no product or service that is immune from creating this sense of wow. Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote 2001, I love this. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, meaning I don't care as the consumer how it works, as long as it works. The first time I showed my father Uber, 4 or 5 years ago, we were up in town and it was raining sideways and never going to get a taxi. I was like, I don't know, watch this, we'll get an Uber. Showed him, he's like, oh, look, the little cars are moving. And I was like, yeah, and here comes ours. As far as my father was concerned, I pressed a button and a flippin' car appeared. His son is a wizard. He doesn't care about the machinations and the politics and the processes that make this happen. He just knows that he can press a button and a car will poof into existence. And now I get a text message, hey, I'm in Copenhagen and they have Uber here. I said, Dad, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. But that sense of magic, that packaging, that narrative, that storytelling of making it seem impossible is so important. If even the most mundane, SaaS, cloud-based shipping insurance software package, if it means that if your version of that means I can go home to my kids 30 minutes earlier, you're God as far as I'm concerned. There's no business that you cannot apply magic to, and I think it's something that we should all be in perpetual pursuit of. This is a topic that I want to end on, but I think it's an important one to reinforce because the way that we define online and offline has changed, especially in the financial sector. Since the dawn of the internet, these two have always been siloed. Online was the IT guys in the basement that you're not supposed to talk to during the daylight hours. Offline, everything else. And never the twain shall meet. Those days are gone. The consumer has forced that change. They now have an expectation that I should be able, you are a single entity, and the brand and the platforms with which you choose to push your marketing materials are also the platforms that I should be able to engage with you. So they have set the expectation that if I start a conversation with you on Twitter, on Facebook, etc., I should be able to pick up the phone, dial your 0800 number, or walk into a branch and continue that conversation with zero lag and 100% context. This has screwed basically every company in the world. There are a handful that have caught up to this and integrated their systems, or at least sort of patched over the cracks. British Airways are alarmingly good at this. If I ever need anything done with them, I just send them a message on Twitter instead of waiting 45 minutes on hold. But that's the new normal. This is how the world works. This is how consumers expect to engage with us. I want to share a story that I just adore telling because I think it really rams it home. Anyone heard of Pact? Pact are a subscription coffee company. They're based about literally 150 yards from here. And this happened 3 years ago. So every 2 weeks you get a package in the post with coffee beans or coffee grounds. It's good. I mean, I like coffee. I'm no connoisseur, but in our office we had a subscription, and a lot of the guys there had the sort of meth lab level coffee setups at home, and they liked it. It was good coffee. And a few years ago, the Saturday before Christmas, Pact were a 3-person startup, just 3 people trying to keep their heads above water. I was at my grandmother's house in deepest, darkest rural Kent, nursing a reasonably substantial hangover and not wanting to move too much of my body, just other than my thumb. So I was idly flicking through Twitter when I came across this sponsored tweet. Sponsored meaning I don't follow them on Twitter. Proper coffee, hand roasted and delivered fresh to home, blah, 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 blah. Now, every single one of us has that one word that sends them into an apoplectic rage or just makes you squirm. Could be moist, could be shrubbery, pencil, I don't know. You all have it, you're thinking of it right now. Mine is proper. I hate that word so much, especially in marketing. It's lazy, it's self-aggrandizing, it's elitist, it's unearned. It's almost as bad as bespoke. Proper is a terrible, terrible word. And I was so blinded by my kind of general sort of, probably, alcohol was coursing through my veins. And I replied to a sponsored tweet, and I said, negative points for using the word proper. You're better than that, level O subscriber. And I even did the ultra jerk move of putting a full stop at the beginning so everybody that follows me could see how mentally unhinged I was. Put my phone away, done my angry old man bit for the world, resumed my hangover. 30 seconds later, my phone dings. Wow. Okay, sorry, we didn't mean to sound snobbish, just looking for a word that conveys good taste. Maybe just tasty. Love Pact. Now, I am a firm believer that if you genuinely believe in the quality of what you produce, you have every right to be confident in it. Confidence in a brand, just like confidence in a person, is very attractive. And I replied to that point. I think you could legitimately refer to yourselves as great. Love the product, keep smashing it. And they replied very humbly. And I thought, wow, that's pretty amazing. This is the busy time of year for those guys. It's the Saturday before Christmas. There's only a few of them. I've got a good case study. I share this during some of my speeches. No, that's not the end of it. That was Saturday. On Monday, I went back to our office it was in Stockwell, and there was a knock at the door, and we just all swarmed towards the door because everybody loves getting packages. Scared the shit out of the delivery guy. And he handed us this box before kind of sprinting back down the corridor, recycled Amazon box full of packed coffee. And there was a handwritten Christmas card that said, "Dear Alex, we hope you and your loved ones enjoy this over the festive period. Great coffee, sent fresh, love packed." And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. Unbelievable. So they had not only figured out who I was, that I wasn't mentally unstable, that where our office was, taking out the time to box up all this really, really lovely coffee, write a handwritten note that references an online conversation, and ship it up to us, and just kind of create this moment of delight. But here's the most important thing. We were already customers. It's not like they were trying to wow us with some cutesy guerrilla marketing campaign or say, have a free sample. We were already paying them like 45 quid a month for their coffee. It was just a great way of humanizing an otherwise purely offline conversation and relationship. And I love telling that story, and I remain a loyal subscriber. Of course, they're smashing it. They've taken 600 million pounds in venture capital or something awful. But just little things like that. It just cost them 5 quid's worth of coffee and a courier fee. I'm often asked, okay, Snapchat, what's the next Snapchat? What's the next blah, 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 ephemeral platform that no one cares about? Ignore that. Don't chase the shiny. You are great because of what you already do and the service you already provide your customers. If you keep doing that, find the places where your customers are already talking, engage with them there. You will continue to do great things. Thank you very much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Time for a couple of questions?
I have time.
Anybody like to ask Alex a question? A couple of questions. Sir, there's a microphone just coming. Thank you.
Thank you. You said that you got all these little snippets of ideas that make it personal, very much like Paddy Lund, who I read. But he stopped advertising completely. He had all the little scenes, those critical non-essentials, as you called them, but he stopped advertising. Would you work on a loyal client bank and stop advertising for new clients?
It depends on the business. I think it's genuinely risky. I mean, even the most successful businesses in the world still have to talk about new products to new customers. We have the tools and platforms now so advocacy is much more powerful and much more potent, but it's one of many arrows in our quiver. It's not the only arrow. There's a sense of exclusivity, I suppose, if you don't advertise. I think there's something implied there, but I think it's a risky strategy, personally. I think there's a lot of other things that you can do to lower your cost of reacquisition, lower your cost of acquisition, increase average lifetime value of existing customers, that the stuff that we talked about does, but you still need to bring people into the funnel. That'd be my gut reaction to that.
Thanks. Any other questions? Gentleman at the back.
I've got a question. I don't underestimate the fact that people base their decision on emotion, right? It's been proven the marketing is all about it, etc., right? But I think it's changing as every other industry or every other thing that we're experiencing now, right? Especially with the progress, etc. Right? My question is, do you think the reason is starting to take over the emotions? And I give you an example, right? Most of us love German cars, right? Because of obvious things, right? Germans even more so, right? Yet, a couple of years ago, or a few years ago, they voted Kia as the best small car in Germany, which for me was gobsmacking. I mean, it blew my mind that they actually voted a Korean car as the best in the sector, right?
Yeah.
So that must have been based not on emotion, but on reason, right? So do you think it is actually changing?
I would argue that it's based on emotion just as much as it is based on reason. So Kias are popular because they've got ridiculous warranties. That was the hook that they came into the market on. They were the first company in the world to offer a 100,000-mile, 10-year warranty. And people were like, oh, I'll take a gamble on that. And then they realized that the car itself wasn't actually that bad. It was built on 50 years of Japanese engineering quality. And those are the kind of literally and figuratively mechanical components of that decision. but how they felt when they stepped into the car or sat in the car, how they felt when they called somebody at the dealership, how they felt buying the car is just as important to that thing. And I also think setting those two things aside, it speaks volumes to the globalization of our marketplace as well. You know what the number one U.S. manufactured car in the U.S. is? The Toyota Corolla. There is no car that is manufactured at mass with American labor and American parts than the Toyota Corolla. That pisses Americans off, like Trump supporting Americans, so much that they can't comprehend it, but it is an American car. And also, the declination of the quality of the American motor system as well hasn't really helped that conversation. But I think how somebody feels when they experience the purchase process, the car itself, plus the specifics of what they know about the car, gas mileage, reliability, safety, cost, of course, is a big component, plus a brand perception. All those three things will have changed the way that we make buying decisions. And I still love that Kia was voted the best small car in Germany.
Anyway, one final question, anyone? Gentleman here.
The Apple Watch, I gather it's a pretty appalling product, and sales are falling through the floor. But people get divorced a lot nowadays. They marry usually on emotion, but then they get, half of us get divorced. So there is a lot changing beyond just staying with a brand, staying with a spouse. It's a lot more kind of opportunity to change, and new products keep coming in. So they have to keep reinventing what makes us buy.
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that the fundamentals were ever changed. We don't have, in fact, our tolerance for poor quality has shrunk exponentially because there are new competitors, and there's new ways to bring products to market as well. I mean, Kickstarter is an interesting one. I don't think it's had as many hits as people like to think it has, but I will tolerate the crappy bits of the watch because the good bits of it are extraordinarily good. And also, talking about the emotional thing, I don't have to take my phone out of my pocket. So when I'm with my kids and my phone buzzes or beeps at me, I don't have to take it out, break my concentration with my kids to see who was doing it. I have a tap for my wife. So my watch will tap me in a very specific, quite nagging way if it's my wife. If it's any other notification, I can ignore it without ever having to break a glance. I can navigate the entire London transportation system simply with my watch, because taking my wallet out is such a hassle. These are things I convince myself, being such an Apple nerd, oh yeah, it's worth its weight in gold now. But yeah, the perception of quality, the standards by which we hold ourselves, the constant chase of innovation, I think is a good thing and a bad thing. But I think that chase for innovation and trying to one-up our competitors by inserting layers of technology to make our businesses more efficient is fundamentally what's caused this collapse in the actual relationship between the consumer. We've been pushing them away with technology when we just need it to kind of remind ourselves that this is a relationship and not a transaction.
Okay, I think I'm going to call it there in the interest of time. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much, Alex.
Yeah, thank you.